Hi, everyone. It's Mitch from PickDogs.com. I got Chris here with me, Puck Dog. Just one NHL game on the card, but Chris covers a lot of ground over at PickDogs.com. And, we're into New Year's week and, just still a pretty interesting schedule out there. Not necessarily interesting games, but I mean, like, just the way the schedule is laid out. It's like bulk, right? It's like it's kind of like feast or famine, right? It just seems to be a lot of games or little games. Of course, never as light as it is Christmas week or All Star week. Those are really the two times that we kind of get to breathe throughout the entire year. But still, New Year's conference play starts in a lot of this college basketball. We got some nice matchups tonight. And, of course, the NBA kind of goes through a weird thing because normally Friday's their day. But this week, they kind of just even it out. I think there's one day where they kind of bomb us, but most of the days it's pretty even, like 6-7 games a day, and they kind of stick to that. I think there's 4 games on New Year's Day. The NHL has that outdoor game coming up in Dallas this year.
Don't get me started on that. I don't know how they're gonna manage that, but
Well, I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have it somewhat figured out. The
yeah.
NHL is, I think they've done a nice job considering where they were maybe 10 years ago.
Oh no, it's true.
Thursday actually looks to be the big day in the NBA this week, and then Saturday is gigantic as well. And then
I
starting
think
next
Thursday's big
week, it looks like it's
college.
back to normal. Probably going to touch on a few things, today and tomorrow about the things we're just going to put behind us. We do it. I do it kind of every year for what we're going to put behind us from the year, but also from the, in this case, it's the decade, and it's been a crazy decade for me. I've had some major events. I've had some major accomplishments. I've had some major failures. So time to just no. I don't make excuses. I just I don't blame things. I don't do anything like that. I just kind of put it all behind me. I can say this much just to get started on it while we're killing some time. When I started this decade, I'd never made one penny online. I'd been online for 2 years, and I'd never turned any kind of profit on it. I was living in a 800 square foot apartment in Chicago. A lot of you guys saw me back then. My videos are still out there on YouTube that I used to do back then. I started my first website with one of those old big boxy computers. Remember the old monitors that we had, just 10 years ago, right? It's like one of those big monitors, and I had, one of those big boxes underneath my desk. And my computer was so crappy. I mean, the hard drive was literally taped together with duct tape. It literally was. And the computer was as well. And I started this whole thing online with it. Back when I started, Twitter was in its infancy. Facebook was somewhat in its infancy. The social media channels were not what they are today. It's just a totally different animal. There's not even the same names of the same companies out there. It's just been an interesting ride, and I'm glad to have been a part of it. I think in our industry, back then, the guys on the phones were everything. Believe it or not, I reached out to a lot of the handicappers out there and asked to be on their sites and asked to be involved to do things with them, and nobody would even answer me. I think they don't answer me anymore either, but it's for different reasons now. Back then it was because they had never heard of me and they felt that I didn't offer any value to them, and they didn't even know. The only one who actually did reach out to me during that time was Wade from Doc Sports, and he said, "You're on to something. I've seen this before." And also our friends at USA Today Sports, the same thing they said to me. They said, "We've seen websites like yours before. You're going to be very, very big." They said, sit back and continue to do what you're doing. It's been crazy. Like I said, at the beginning of the decade, I hadn't made one dime online. I still had my day job. I didn't get fired from my day job until February of 2010. And at least I believe that's when it was. I believe it was February 2010 when I was fired from my day job. And then by the middle of the decade, I had been audited by the IRS 3 times. So I went from making no money to being audited by the IRS 3 times in half the decade. And I spent a good part of the decade battling the IRS up until about 2015, 2016, going over back taxes, because when I started the website, I didn't realize what was happening. People told me it was going to happen, but I never realized what was happening. So it was pretty much how that went. And then, the last part of the decade, I tried to grow my websites into something gigantic. I just picked the wrong partners, and that will all come out over the next couple months, but we'll figure all that stuff out. I just wanted to touch on that. I wanted to thank everyone. It's been a crazy, crazy ride, but let's take a look at what everyone has to say. Good morning. Good morning. Yep, Seahawks second half was another winner. We almost won that game. Almost doesn't count, but man, did we get close, right? Never give up. Forgot to change the name of this morning's show, I think. I think I did. I thought I did. I changed it. Matter of fact, I messed it up because I put a less than sign. NBA is less than NHL instead of putting in the comma. Do you think Clemson will upset LSU? I haven't really dug into it yet, but I would say if Clemson beats LSU, it wouldn't be an upset. I think this game is a pick'em all the way. I don't think it has anything to do with that. There's one player on a great team. LSU's stacked. I mean, it's not like they don't have 100 other running backs on the roster. We saw them all, right? Because
yeah.
It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Does it depend on? I think Higgins' health, has a lot more to do with the game than Hilaire's. That's for sure. He's been a great player and a big part of that team this year, but LSU and Clemson are teams, man. These are not about one player. I think if you're talking Lawrence and Burrow, there's going to be a drop-off there, but not, any other position, there's not going to be a big drop-off. I mean, I would say that Chason on LSU is, on the defensive side equally, wears the 18 jersey. He's got, that's, anyone that follows college football knows how big that is. But welcome to our channel. Be sure to subscribe and hit the thumbs up. Chris, what's going on? I've been kind of on a filibuster ramble here this morning, but I don't care.
No, it's all good.
It's New Year's week, man. I think we've earned it. This has been a crazy year, right? I mean, it's been nuts.
Yeah.
With us, I mean, like everything that we've been through this year. This has been easily the craziest year that we've worked together.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, it's I lost all my guys. I got my guys back. I lost my website. I just said, okay, I'll just build a new one from the ground up, and we're ending the year in the top 100,000 websites in the world, which doesn't sound like such a big deal. But to be able to do that in October 4th was our launch date, to be able to do that in less than 3 months, considering there's 100 million websites out there, it's a pretty big deal. We're 17,000th in the United States. Once again, not where we want to be or where we're going or anything like that, but in 3 months, I mean, how many websites are there in the United States? 17 million. We're in the top 1% already, in less than 3 months. You can only imagine where this thing's going. But we don't do it that way. We have a video on this game. If you are interested in this game, there's a video out there. You can go out and check it out. I did a video on that game. Not really sure. Yeah, it's Team A versus Team B with a point spread if you have a question. But I think the LSU-Clemson game, LSU is a 6-point favorite or whatever. I don't know. I think it's a pick'em game. You know, I think you start by taking the points, and then you try and get yourself off of that. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, when I first, I covered that game on Pick Dogs, and at first I was really impressed with how LSU handled themselves against Oklahoma. But you're starting to talk me towards the points too now. I originally was laying the 5 with LSU.
But we saw Clemson, in 2 of the last 3 years, slay the giant from the SEC twice.
Yeah.
And the last time they did it, they absolutely carved them up. I mean, if you take LSU's performance versus Oklahoma and Clemson's performance versus Ohio State, they're just 2 different animals. And I think if you put Clemson against Oklahoma, or if you put Ohio State against Oklahoma, or if you put Ohio State against LSU, you have all totally different games there, than what we saw. And I think putting Oklahoma's defense in the same class as in Ohio State defense that has, I mean, let's take a look at Ohio State, okay, from top to bottom here, okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with NFL secondaries, right? How many times do you hear on these NFL things, the Ohio State from one of these secondary, from one of these guys in the secondary? The only slouch in the bunch is Eli Apple. I mean, the rest of them are all studs, right? So the corner on Ohio State this year is the first consensus All-American corner they've ever had. I mean, that's crazy. That's how good this team was this year. I mean, They were stacked. No one got a whiff of them this season. No one came even close against Ohio State this season. So I think you put them against an Oklahoma team that beat Iowa State by a point, lost to Kansas State, and I mean, this was not. Oklahoma needs to go away. I mean, that's part of the problem here. But Clemson is the giant killer. They beat Alabama twice. 2 of the last 3 times they played an SEC giant, they beat them. The one year that they lost was the year that Saban had quite some time, and that was Kelly Bryant at QB, not Trevor Lawrence. A big difference. And, I think, you look at Hilaire as a great running back. You look at Etienne, I think he's better. You look at the LSU wide receivers, Jefferson, I mean, these guys are fantastic. You look at the Clemson wide receivers. I mean, go to the NFL. I mean, I always use this comparison: Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr., right? And then you look at the Clemson wide receivers, right? Everywhere, they're everywhere. DeAndre Hopkins. You got, the guys in Kansas City now.
Watkins.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins and Mike Williams on San Diego, who's been injured a lot of his career, but still fantastic. I mean, they're pretty much loaded across the NFL as well. So I think people that are going by LSU's performance against Oklahoma to handicap this game, you're barking up the wrong tree. I think what you need to look at is Clemson's game last year against Alabama is where you got to start, and see how they handled a big physical SEC team last year. And what they did is they just carved them up. And I think that LSU secondary against the Clemson receivers is going to be the matchup. I actually think that Clemson's running game against the LSU front 7, I think, is a Clemson edge. And I think that, I think the other way, I think the LSU running game against Clemson's defensive front, I think maybe a little edge to LSU, but both secondaries are fantastic. Both quarterbacks are ridiculous. I don't understand, how Trevor Lawrence doesn't even get a Heisman mention this year. I mean, how is that even possible?
That I don't understand.
I mean, how is that even possible? How is Chase Young in the Heisman discussion and Trevor Lawrence isn't? I mean, how is Justin Herbert not in the Heisman discussion? I mean, it's just who votes for this stuff? I don't know, man. I think everyone knows where I'm going here. So I think I've made it pretty obvious where I'm at today, and I don't know if that changes, but it's likely Clemson on the money line is where I'm at right now. But anyways, let's get started on today's action. Chris, there's just the one game today in hockey. You want to get this one knocked out right out of the gate?
Yeah, sure. It's Ottawa at Pittsburgh. I'm on Pittsburgh on the puck line here at -110. Ottawa's been kind to us at home, but They're a completely Jekyll and Hyde on the road. They're a completely different team. They're not good on the road. Pittsburgh continues to win no matter where they play, despite all the injuries that they have. And they're also strong at home, won 15-4-2 this season. I see it being a 4-1 or 5-2 game.
Okay, tomorrow we got 13 games, so Puck Dog Rod will be back with us. I'm sure he's crunching the numbers already on a lot of these games. I'm looking at the schedule, and I'll tell you what, my friends from Boston last night, as I was woofing constant crap about that Dolphin game to them, all they could say was the Bruins are on a 3-game winning streak. Rod is saying to lay the 2.5 on this one. Yeah. See, this is the problem that you guys have. This is the problem that you guys have. Is public perception on LSU is way out of whack because of the Heisman winner as well. I think that just creates value on the other side, and that's why Heisman winners traditionally don't do well in the big bowl games. Just saying it. I mean, Alabama has had some luck with them, but outside of that, usually Heisman winners struggle in bowl games. Well, let's get to the college football bowl games today. Western Michigan against Western Kentucky. I have trouble with this one. These are not good teams, and I think, if anyone that saw my videos today, I just talked about how broken the college football bowl system is, that we're playing these games after those big games. It's like, why aren't those other games on New Year's Day? I mean, the championship's not until the 13th. Why don't we go back to New Year's Day for the for those games, for the big games, and then go back to maybe have some of these other games as other playoff games as well. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see this. But Western Kentucky, we got directional game here. Western Michigan, Western Kentucky, and two bad teams. I mean, they're not bad teams, but let's just say it's not going to be Ohio State versus Clemson. It's not even going to be close. It's what's the point here? These are supposed to be those early games, and then the games are supposed to get better and better and better. This year, there's just, because of bowl affiliations, the games are bad across the board except for New Year's Day. But let's go here. Western Michigan, Western Kentucky. I gave out a video pick on this game. I did not give a side. I don't know. I'm going to take Western Michigan and the points because I think you have two bad teams, and I'm just going to take the points. I don't love this game. I'm not bet. This game I did not put a bet in. I didn't put a side bet in. I didn't put a total bet in. I don't care. I'm going to play golf, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm on Western Michigan as well. I'm going to take the points and money line. I just think Western Michigan, Levante Bellamy in the backfield, he's been one of the most underrated running backs in the country as far as I'm concerned. I think he carves up Western Kentucky. I'll take Western Michigan.
I'm with you on that one. Go to the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl, and way to preserve that amateur status for college football there. Throw a sponsor's name on there. Louisville against Mississippi State. Mississippi State 6-6. Traditionally, a team that plays better in these games, that plays well in these games. Louisville, certainly an improved team and has gotten better as the season has gone on. And Ken Satterfield, I think, was a great hire as head coach. We love App State, right? So he did well for us there. Went to Louisville, and I think you could see the direction of this program already changing. He's getting 4.5 points. We saw some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen in my entire life in that Mississippi State-Tennessee game this year. See any reason for the Bulldogs to be favored here against LSU? Against Louisville?
Yeah, you know me, I covered the SEC for us a lot this year, and I wasn't a big fan of Mississippi State, but they do have Kylan Hill at running back. They do have Garrett Schrader at quarterback. He's a dual threat. Louisville's given up 211 rushing yards a game. I think Mississippi State can run past them and win this one by a touchdown. I would take a shot with Mississippi State laying the 4.5. We
got Cal against Illinois. I got hammered on YouTube on this video, so if you haven't seen it, you can go back. And I have to say that of all the college football videos I've done this entire season, I think today I was least inspired by my videos, because I think that this is one of the worst college football bowl game cards that we've had. I think that some of those early matchups where he says, yeah, reward them for having a good season and, you know, all that other stuff. I think you can make that argument in the Vegas Bowl and stuff like that. But I don't think you can make this argument, you know, on December 30th, you know. Illinois against Cal. I mean, when's the last time Cal scored a point? I mean, this is terrible. Illinois, a big surprise this season. They had the win over Wisconsin. You know, they've played pretty well this season. Cal ended the season with 2 wins. Stanford, who was terrible this year in the game, and then UCLA, 28-18, which who in the hell knows. And so they won 3 of their last 4. Washington State, and then they got belted by USC, got belted by Utah, lost at home to Oregon State, lost 17-7 against Oregon. Really one of the most boring Oregon games you'll ever see. 24-17 lost to Herm and ASU, win over Ole Miss, and a win over North Texas. Meanwhile, Illinois ended the season with 2 losses, including that surprising loss to Northwestern. That was really a little bit of a shocker, but they had a pretty good season overall. You know, this was a team that, you know, covered the spread like no one's business. We were on them all season long, and, you know, while we didn't get that win in the Northwestern game, you know, we had covered the spread 6 weeks in a row with this team. So, you know, 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. I love you. What do you think here?
Yeah, I'm on Illinois as well, and I'm even going to put a little bit on Illinois money line. I just really like the improvement that we've seen under Lovie Smith for Illinois, and I still wonder if Chase Garbers is 100% healthy for Cal. I think Illinois forces a couple turnovers here, and that makes the difference.
I'm with you on that one. I like the under here as well. I don't know how Cal scores any points against a Lovie Smith defense. It doesn't even make any sense to me. I don't know. The Cal fans, they've always been nasty. They always have been nasty. I don't know why that is, man. It's like Cal and Georgia Tech, man. It's like, wow. It's like they must have a class for mean people there or something. It's like just mean. You know, not even like, you know, unfun, good spirit, argumentative, debate. You know, it's just mean. My first exposure to mean fans was Georgia Tech. They were just mean. Anyways, I mean, in Miami, we're nasty. You know, we were nasty fans. We always have been. It's like very, very educated about the game and about every bit about it because we never really had a lot of sports in Miami until, you know, recently. There was no Marlins, there was no Panthers, there was no Heat. It was the Canes and the Dolphins and, you know, whatever high school teams you followed. And, you know, so Florida, Miami fans always really know their football inside and out, but, you know, from the Pee Wee level on up. And, you know, so we could really pick apart other teams and, you know, really get them under their skin in areas that most people probably wouldn't even notice, you know, are going on with that team. But Virginia against Florida. Virginia's already lost in this stadium once this year to Miami. Here we go again, you know, Orange Bowl. Florida versus Virginia. I mean, Florida has 2 losses this year, right? Georgia and LSU. And here they are in this game, you know, against Virginia, you know, and someone try and tell me the system isn't broken, you know. Tell me the system isn't broken as you have Florida, you know, playing Virginia in this game. Virginia 9-4 on the season. It seems every time they were away from home, they got beat up. I don't know. I mean, Florida, obviously players are sitting for this game because, you know, they have NFL talent on that team. I think that Florida has really the best player in the country that I said, you know, I think that when we see the NFL draft coming up, that we're going to hear a lot of Florida names. And, you know, my favorite player in the country, one of my favorite players in the country, one of my top 10 guys, and who I think is better than Chase Young, is Zuniga on Florida. One of the best. I mean, he gets banged up a lot, but if you think Chase Young destroys game plans, where do you see Zuniga on Florida? This guy runs running backs down from the backside, from the defensive end spot, and you don't see that a lot, and he does it with regularity. He's an NFL top 5 guy. If he slips through beyond that, someone got the deal of the century. This is a guy that, you know, he's a Pro Bowler in the NFL, and you know, Florida has a lot of these players. So Meanwhile, Virginia, like I said, they go away from home, and I don't know, man. They forget how to play football. 7-0 at home this season for the Cavs. What do you think of this lousy big bowl game, right? And this is one of the big bowl games. You know, can you think, number one, can you think of 10 other matchups you'd rather see than this? You know, how about Oregon versus Florida? You know, how about that? How good would that be?
Yeah,
this sucks. This is unfair to us as fans,
especially with the name of the Orange Bowl and the marquee. I like Florida to run all over Virginia here. There's just a big talent gap as far as I'm concerned for Florida here. I mean, they won each of the last
Penn State, Florida.
I'd be up for that.
Yeah, it's like this is terrible. How about Iowa, Florida, as opposed to this? I mean, come on. Seriously, man, this is unfair, is what this is.
Yeah. But I'm on Florida laying the 14.5 here. It's a big number, and you're right, guys could be resting, but I still think they win this one by at least 50.
How about Baylor versus Florida? I mean, this is 20 teams I'd rather see in this spot than Virginia. I mean, this is one of the big games, you know? This is one of the big bowl games. This is one where the national championship gets played some years, or at least the playoffs too. It's like
Auburn.
The Super Bowl is in this stadium this year. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm disgusted with this, man. This to me tells me we have a system that is broken, and it needs to be fixed. It's enough is enough. This is kind of, for me, the last straw, you know? I don't even understand this, you know? How about anything? Florida, Michigan, anything.
Notre Dame.
I've named 8 other teams that could be in this game that are outside of Florida's conference. That would be a better game than this.
Well, like I said, you can put Notre Dame in there.
Yeah, put Notre Dame in there. I mean, they'd get killed too, but
but at least for the name brand.
Yeah, it would be a better game than this.
Instead of the Camping World Bowl.
9-4. How does that qualify you for the Orange Bowl? Because you're the runner-up in the ACC? That puts you in the Orange? Where's the runner-up in the Pac-12? Goes to the Holiday Bowl. How about Texas? You know, even Texas, not even good. How about Florida, Texas? You know, something. Yeah. Oh my God, man, what are they doing to us? This is everything that's wrong with college football, man. We saw everything that's right with college football on Saturday night with Ohio State and Clemson, and this is everything that's wrong with college football. Virginia, Florida, which is fine if that's the Red Box Bowl, right? But it's not. It's the Orange.
Yeah. I mean, I'd even put Minnesota in there.
I'd put anybody. Yeah. We could name 15 teams that we'd rather see in this game than Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. It's definitely flawed.
Yeah, this is the problem. Bowl affiliation. That started in about 1987, I would like to say. 88, 87, 88. When they started bowl affiliation, where you can have bowl tie-ins. Outside of the big conference. Outside of the big ones. And that's how the Chick-fil-A Bowl becomes a big bowl. You know, all of a sudden. It went from like being the Peach Bowl to, you know, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And a big game. And that's how, you know, I mean, the big bowl games were always the Orange, the Sugar, and the Rose. Those were the big ones. Then the Fiesta came in, okay? Then, now the Peach Bowl is in there. And, you know, the Cotton was always there, too. The Cotton was always kind of like those three, and then the Cotton. And then the Fiesta jumped them. I don't even understand what's going on here, man. I'm disgusted by this game. What do we have on Monday nights on TV? I mean, who knows? Because I'm normally watching Monday Night Football, right? This is our Monday Night Football, you know, where we go through our withdrawals. So they think they could just throw on Florida, Virginia, and we're going to be happy to watch that believe me, by halftime, no one's going to be watching. I'll be on at halftime. If it's not a ridiculous game that people have tuned out, I knew that the Clemson Ohio State would be one of my highest watched halftimes, like that and like the Super Bowl, my highest watched halftimes. I'm gonna guess this will be one of my lowest watched halftimes. Will be this game, and now people will join us in droves.
I was gonna say shameless plug.
Yeah. Well, I'll be on at halftime. I don't. Yeah. Either way, you know, I just keep showing up, man. That's how I run my. That's how I run my whole. This is what I do for a living. It's like, you know, I own the company, so I can't get fired, and I just keep showing up every day. You know, it's like no one cares anymore, Mitch. They want you to go away. I'll just keep showing up, man. I'll just keep showing up, and I know some people, they don't like it. Let's go to some of these college hoops. Who do you like today in college hoops?
Well, the first one I kind of caught my eye. I like DePaul and the pick 'em against Seton Hall. I just think that, you know, DePaul's, they've been really good out of the gate. I'm still not sure if Miles Powell's back for Seton Hall just yet, but I still like DePaul at home here. This just feels like a different Blue Demons team than what we've seen in the past.
I've always said, you know, that if DePaul could get a couple of Chicago guys to stay home, that this team would be a national powerhouse again. And DePaul, it just takes a winning season to get them there. Now they're moving into conference play. They knocked off some big teams out of conference. They beat Texas Tech. They beat Iowa. They've won some big games out of conference. The one loss is to Buffalo. Not a lot of shame in that. That's a team that's won an NCAA tournament game the last 2 years. I mean, it's not the best Buffalo team we've seen. That's for sure. I mean, it's not the best, but you know, no one's unbeaten, right? So, I mean, this is going to happen. These games are going to happen. But I'm with you on that one. I like DePaul in this one too. I think that, you know, we're still getting value on DePaul because people are late to the party as far as college basketball goes. There's, you know, now that NFL season is winding down, college football season is winding down, a lot of people still aren't on college hoops yet. You know, it'll be until after the playoffs, you know, when people are on it. Usually it's that off week between the Super Bowl or the Saturday before the Super Bowl when we start to see people really jumping on college basketball. And then it's just February and March when most people think that's the only thing there is to college basketball season. But I'm with you. I think there's still value on DePaul here. I think they should be favored in this game by, you know, probably by 2 or 3 at least.
I mean, and they started as an underdog too.
Yep. Oh, is the line switched now?
It went from +1 to a pick 'em. So
yeah, so they're -1 now. It opened at +1. Yeah, because everyone was thinking the same thing that we were thinking. You know, right there. How about George Mason against TCU? This line's gone from 8 to 11. I mean, this is just a gigantic spread. I don't know. George Mason is pretty good this year. You know, a lot of people think George Mason is like a really small school or something. They have like 60,000 students or something. It's a gigantic school. And, you know, TCU, when it comes to covering spreads, the bus has left the building, right? I mean, these guys, 11's a ton.
Yeah, I like George Mason here. I mean, they're 5-1 against number against teams that are above 500. You know, TCU's only covered 2 of their last 9 games. I put a little bit on even George Mason on the money line. Is TCU's lost 3 times as a favorite this year. That's all 3 losses have come as a favorite. So I'll put a little bit on George Mason money line as well as George Mason +11.
How about Kent State against Mississippi State? This is another one that's, you know, really interesting game. Mississippi State doesn't cover the spread at home too often. Kent State's been absolutely rolling this season. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but you know, I like Kent State in this one as well.
Yeah, I had Mississippi State in my article. I just think that they're the better team. Kent State really haven't played anyone up to this point. I think Mississippi State sort of gives them a wake up call here.
8 points is just a bunch. You know,
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, it's just a ton. So I gotta take it. Let's keep rolling with a couple more college hoops. We'll just throw out some more of these big games that are going. Pitt against Canisius. I'm going to mention this one because it's the early start, so people care. Anything on this one?
I just took Canisius with the points. I thought it was just too many.
Yeah. You know, yesterday in their Facebook group, I did something that I haven't done at all. And what I did is I took one of the games, the college hoops games, because I knew it was an NFL Sunday, and I figured that a lot of people weren't paying attention to college hoops, and I just picked one of my college hoops videos where I was going to bet the game myself, and I hadn't mentioned it on the show, and I really hadn't. I just posted it in the Facebook group, and I said, you know what? I didn't talk about this game on the show. I didn't say anything. I'm just saying I bet this game. So, and a lot of people jumped on it. It was Oregon State, and they got the win and cover against North Dakota. It was one that believe me, I would have put it in as a premium pick, but I was kind of just overwhelmed with everything else that's been going on. But at least I was able to get that into the premium, into the Facebook group. How about Villanova and Xavier? This is another big one.
Yeah, this is going to be probably game of the day for me. I'm going to sit and watch this one. I like Villanova here, though, at home. I think Villanova starts to flex some muscle, show why they're the ranked team here. I like Xavier a lot more than I like Villanova a lot more than I like Xavier.
Yeah, I think I like Xavier with the points. I think this is going to be a pretty close game. Both these teams are pretty good. Villanova hardly looks like the same team that they've been in recent years. But I think, we kind of look at some of these teams, like TCU has struggled against the spread, but when you look at the other side, right, they're winning everything in sight. And, Villanova, it's like, yeah, they haven't really looked like the same Villanova. And the loss at Ohio State was just, they got destroyed. It was like, they were down by 30 at halftime and never really made the big Seattle Seahawks second half comeback or Clemson comeback or anything. They kind of just sat there and got rolled over by a steamroller. But you look back at at the big picture and you say this is a team with 2 losses. The losses, Ohio State in Columbus, where Ohio State has won, except up until yesterday had won every game. And of course we gave out West Virginia in that video pick. And meanwhile. The other loss was Baylor, who I love, right? I love Baylor.
Yeah.
I've been talking about Baylor all the time, and Baylor is one of my teams, and for college hoops, and they have been for a while. I just like Baylor because they seem to fly under the radar because they play in that brutal conference with really, really good teams, but they're always super athletic, and they are once again this season. So I think when you have athletes like that, and you can run the court with some of these good teams, you always have a puncher's chance. So if you get enough points, Baylor. The big problem for me with Baylor this year is what 5 guys do you put on the court, because they're just loaded. It's you got too many guys. Too many good players. But I'm with you on Xavier there. I don't love that game. I'm not rushing to the window on that one. I like the DePaul game a lot better than that one.
Yeah, so do I.
How about the Memphis Tigers? James Wiseman never made it to the to see the new year with Memphis. He's preparing for the NBA draft, whatever that means. Just like these guys preparing for the NFL draft. What could Brandon Wimbush possibly be doing to prepare for the NFL draft? The guy threw 6 passes this season, right? He rode the bench for UCF. So by not sitting on the bench for the game, that's how he prepares for the NFL. I don't see it. Anyways, Memphis 16-point favorites against a Tulane team that we kind of liked for a little while there, but they've lost 3 of their last 4 games.
Yeah. I'm still going to take a shot with Tulane in the points here. Tulane still has a lot of talent. They have Sean Hightower, who leads the team in scoring. KJ Loss, new transfer over from Kansas. Memphis probably wins this game, but I can see it being maybe a 10 or 11 point game. I think it's too many points.
So another game that I want to look at real quick, and we'll go to NBA after this. Well, there's a couple games on the schedule. I have videos out there. You guys can check them out. But here's one that I don't have a pick or video on. We got San Francisco taking on Harvard. Yesterday, Harvard played back-to-backs, but you have to understand that Harvard always plays back-to-backs. The Ivy League, when you get into past the new year and you get into the Ivy League schedule, because they are academic institutions, they play their games on Fridays and Saturdays, Friday nights and Saturdays. So they're used to playing. These are teams built to play back-to-back. But now they're on the West Coast. They probably just want to get home for New Year's and everything. So they played last night against Cal, and now they just go down the street and play San Francisco. Harvard was one of my top plays yesterday on the board, and they no problemo against Cal. San Francisco a little tougher. What do you think in this one?
Yeah, I'm on you. I'm exactly why you said that Harvard's used to the back-to-backs. That's why I like Harvard here with the points. They're a really talented team. I watched that Cal game, and Cal couldn't really get within a sniff of them until maybe late. San Francisco's been good, but I still had a little bit of an issue. I mean, they rallied to beat Fresno State, but they didn't look good for most of that game. I'll take a shot with Harvard here in a game that Harvard could very well win outright.
Yeah, I like Harvard in this one too. I think Harvard has the possibility to win this game outright, like you said. But I think getting the 5 is basically a gift here. We've seen San Francisco in these spots like this, 5-point favorites in games like this. They don't cover, you know. It's like they might win, but it's going to be a point or 2, maybe 3. I don't even think they're going to win. I mean, you know, all things equal, you know, this is one of the better Ivy Leagues that we've seen, you know. I think there are a few conferences out there, and we'll wrap up college basketball, we'll go to the NBA, but a few of the things about that we need to remember, you know, heading into conference play, you know, because we're not going to see a lot of these teams again until March, is that this is one of the better Ivy Leagues that we've seen. Harvard and Yale are both really good. They're both really good teams, and Yale's playing at North Carolina tonight, and they head into this one at, I think they're like 10-3. And it's not like they haven't played anybody either. I mean, they've played everybody. And Harvard, too. You see them taking on Cal and San Francisco on back-to-back nights. They've played teams, too. So Harvard and Yale both are going to be contenders. So one will obviously go to the big dance, and the other one will be in the NIT. But these are going to be teams that we're going to be betting on in March. I can guarantee you that. And the other conference that's really good this year that hasn't been good in a while is the Pac-12. Arizona, I mean, obviously Cal is terrible, but Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, all good. USC is good this year, you know, good enough to be in the tournament. You know, normally they're scrounging for a Pac-12 teams. You know, this year they're not going to have a problem with it. Stanford is very good. They lost yesterday to Kansas, but they're still a very good team. I mean, I could see 4 or 5 Pac-12 teams in the big dance this year. Something that we haven't seen in the last few years. So that's some things to keep in mind. But I did tons of college basketball videos for today. I did 11 of them. I got them up a little late last night. I was doing some accounting crap, year end. Nothing fun about that. Yeah, I got a video on that, Margaret. If you go to youtube.com, I got a video on that game. So any games that we didn't cover, more than likely there's a video on it. If there's not a video on it, you can go into the Facebook group and we can talk about it there. Because I don't have any premiums today in college hoops. Go to the NBA. Just 6 games on the card. A lot of late lines in these games. Let's go over a couple of them really quickly, and then if there's something here that we don't mention, you can do it. We got the Bucks against the Bulls. This line has dropped from 8 to 6.5. The Bulls have been playing pretty well recently. We've been on them a bunch. If you guys watch my YouTube videos, you've seen me on the Bulls a ton on those videos. And they're 8-2 against the number in their last 10. The Bucks 8-2. The weird thing about this is, and I didn't even look at the historical records between these two teams, but just as, you know, I love the Bulls, you know, because I lived in Chicago, and they were not really good most of the time that I lived in Chicago. They had a few good teams with Rose, but they also had some really lame years. And I loved being out in Vegas betting on the Bulls, getting big numbers and winning, you know, as a bad team that covers. Had a lot of fun with it, and I would just sit there in the sports book at MGM and say, "Your Chicago Bulls." People would be like, "Who are you on?" And I would, because they would recognize me, and I'd be, "Who are you on?" I would just say, "Your Chicago Bulls," because that's how they always announce them. It's like, anyways, but I just think that. I think that Milwaukee they seem to really get up for playing the Bulls, and they've covered 3 of the last 4. They've covered 6 of the last 8 against Chicago. I don't know, man. I think they cover again.
Yeah, I'm on Milwaukee here. Milwaukee 7-0 against the number in the last 7 in Chicago, 6-2 against the spread in the last 8. Giannis is questionable for this one, but I still think Milwaukee wins here.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to play or not, but I still think I like it. If you look at the Bulls injury list, it's a mile long,
Yeah.
So I just think that, like I said, for some reason the Bucks really get up for this one. It's because it's the proximity. It's so close, the two cities, to one another. It's hardly a road game for them. But I like the Bucks, even though I'm on the Bulls so much. Couple other games. We got the Miami Heat against the Wizards. 50-50 on the betting action. But the Heat, I don't know. The Heat continue to roll on. They're just 9-7 though, straight up on the road. 8-7 against the number. The Wiz 5-7 against the number at home. Getting 8.5 here against a Heat team that this team means business. I mean, they mean business. 750 winning percentage. That means business.
Yeah, the number seems about right on for me, so I'll take a shot with Washington at the points at home in this one.
I'm taking the Heat. I just don't think Washington is a very good team, and I think they're in trouble here.
Yeah, I don't like this game personally, but
we'll do one more, and this is another interesting one to me. It's the Jazz and the Pistons, because the reason why it's interesting is that the Jazz, they're just not a cover team, and now they're laying double digits. The line's from 9-10 now. They're just not a cover the spread team, and when you're laying double digits with a team that doesn't cover the spread, that's usually it's a tough sledding, to be able to do that. Meanwhile, the Pistons are one of the worst road teams, so it makes it even tougher. The Pistons just 12-21 on the season, straight up, and 4-11 straight up on the road, 4-10 against the number, 3-7 against the number in the last 10. The Jazz have kind of picked it up, 8-2 in their last 10, 7-3 against the number in the last 10, but still, while they're 12-3 at home, just 7-8 against the number, which means that as a favorite, to me, what that says is, as a favorite, they're usually asked to do too much by the odds makers.
Yeah,
it's a tough one, right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for the total here. I'm going to side with the under.
Not a bad play. I think it's probably the way to go. I think getting 10 with the Pistons is just hard to pass up here. Just, it's hard to take the Pistons on the road. It's hard to, lay 10 with the Jazz. It's just, if you're betting this game and you know something, by all means, let me know, man. Let me know. Ryan Braun shows up late and figures that we'll just cover all the games over again for him, but kind of not how it works. But we already covered that stuff. You're about, I don't know how many hours. You're 47 minutes late to the show, so we covered college football already, but we have a video out there on the Cal. I have one on YouTube. It's called Illinois versus Cal, free pick and prediction with the date, and then Red Box Bowl. So it's out there on YouTube, so you can go check that out. But anyways, I took Western Michigan, DePaul, Kent State, Xavier, Miami Heat, Pistons. Chris, how about you?
On the ice, I took Pittsburgh minus 1.5. I took Western Michigan plus the 3. I took Mississippi State minus 5.5 in college football. I took Illinois plus 6.5 and Illinois money line on college football. Florida minus 14.5. For college hoops, I like DePaul in the pick'em against Seton Hall. North Florida plus 20 against Dayton. Northern Kentucky minus 5.5 against Green Bay. Yale plus 8 against North Carolina. George Mason plus 11 against TCU. Gonzaga minus 32.5 against Detroit. Harvard plus 5 against San Francisco. Tulane plus 15.5. Villanova minus 6 against Xavier. Canisius plus 14 against Pitt. In the NBA, I like Brooklyn minus 2.5. Under in the Detroit-Utah game. Milwaukee minus 6.5 and Washington plus 8.5 against Miami.
All right, a lot of information there. So, if the Florida-Cincinnati Sugar Bowl a few years back when Brian Kelly resigned at Cincinnati and Cincinnati went undefeated that year, the year he got the Notre Dame job. If that was about a 9 on the stink factor for bowl games, where do we put this? Where do you think this Florida-Virginia game's going to be on that stink factor scale? Do you like the over or under on, let's say, 7?
Over.
Yeah, I like the over on the stink factor in the Florida-Virginia game. I'm, as a college football fan, something's so wrong about having that game in the Orange Bowl. It's kind of like, didn't they put Duke in there at 6-6 a few years ago too, or something? It was like,
I think so.
Yeah, why? Why bother? Bring in the Ducks. That's what I gotta say. What's wrong? I mean, isn't Oregon one? It's like you just gotta say, kind of like how they say if these teams meet this qualification to get into, from the outside of the conferences, meet this qualification like Memphis did to get into the bowl game against Penn State. Can't we have a qualification for the Orange Bowl that says, if it's Virginia, we can go out and get somebody else, to play in this game like Oregon.
Yeah. I can't argue with that. I'm looking up the affiliation right now. You need to have ACC number 1, or with Clemson being in the bowl number 2. I guess I have the SEC number 2, which I guess they have Florida, Big Ten number 2, or Notre Dame. So
Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame, even Wisconsin or something. I don't know.
Well, Wisconsin's in the Rose. They were not going to turn that down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, true enough.
It's because those other teams made it to the playoff. I think with the playoff, I think it's time to reorganize this system and to go and say, here, what I'm going to do is I'll call the committee. They never answer me back, but I'll write them an email, and what I'll do is I'll send them an attachment to a blank Excel spreadsheet, and I'll say, what you do is you say, okay, here's the team's records, okay? Here's their wins versus teams with winning records, okay? We'll count that as a separate column. And whichever one has the highest ratio of this and this, wins over, we'll even just say wins over teams with winning records. We'll just say wins over teams from major conferences with a winning record. So all these people that scheduled out of conference garbage games, we won't give them any credit either. Yeah. And, Oregon's got 3 losses. Virginia has 4. Oregon's losses: Utah, Arizona State, and Auburn. Let's look at Virginia's losses real quick while we're beating them into the ground. Meanwhile, they're going to win, right? There's only one way that this can go. My wife will tell you, It's like, you put them down, and this is what happens.
Well, it's Clemson, Louisville, Miami, and Notre Dame.
So Clemson will give away. Notre Dame, who's in a lesser bowl than they are, right? With the same record or worse record? With a better record, right?
Better record, yeah.
Yeah. So Notre Dame, who had a better record than they did. So why wasn't Notre Dame in this game? It was one of their options, right?
It was one of the options.
Yeah. So I wonder why Notre Dame didn't meet the qualifications to go over Virginia. So they lost to Miami, who was 6-7 this year. They lost to FIU and to Louisiana Tech. Louisville, who's a 4.5-point dog to one of the worst quarterback teams I've ever seen in my whole life, in a game that's, what are they playing in? The Music City, or is it the other one? The Red Box. No, Music City is up against the Red Box. They're battling today head to head at 4 Eastern. So I like both those games better than I like the Orange Bowl. And then the loss to Clemson, that's going to happen, I don't know. I don't see this.
Well, Notre Dame's 2 losses were to Michigan and Georgia.
Georgia, right.
And the rest of them, they had wins on the road against Stanford, Boston College, Navy, at Duke, Virginia Tech, at home against USC, Bowling Green, Virginia, New Mexico, and at Louisville.
I don't know, man. I just don't know. What about Oregon, Lost to Auburn, Utah, and Arizona State.
Yeah.
Ducks are tough. That would have been a fun game.
Yeah.
You know,
Florida and Oregon.
Ducks are, who they play in Texas?
Yeah, I think so.
They're going to kill Texas. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense.
No, they're playing Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl.
Oh, Oregon plays Wisconsin?
Yeah.
No, Utah.
Utah's played in the Alamo Bowl against Texas.
Oh, that's right. Oregon beat Utah. They didn't lose to Utah. They beat them. Oh, so they're in the Rose. So we'll give them that. Well, what about Utah then?
Yeah.
Against, So I take all that back. What about Utah against Florida?
Yeah.
The Urban Meyer Bowl.
And put Virginia in the Alamo Bowl.
Or the Red Box or something, Like we'll make one up. We'll call it the Index Card Bowl, the Pick Dogs Bowl.
The Pick Dogs Bowl.
The Pick Dogs Bowl would have to be Mark would have to be our ceremony, our Grand Marshal. Mark would be the Grand Marshal for the parade. It'd be like Akron against
Liberty.
South Alabama or something. It'd be like 6 people. One of those bowl games where there's like 4 people in the stands. I mean, you look at some of these games. You look at like the Hawaii Bowl. There was like 35 people there. I mean, there was a lot of people there because it was Hawaii, but I mean, it was pretty empty.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I noticed that in the Bahamas Bowl too.
Oh man, it was empty. In the Boca Raton Bowl, empty. Right? All those bowl games were just empty. Imagine if those were playoff games. Like a playoff to get into the playoff. Imagine if it was Boise versus Memphis to get into the playoff. It's like, imagine that.
Oh, man.
All right, I'm out of here. We can get into the Seattle play calling, but it is what it is, man. I had the Seahawks last night. I gave out the second half Seahawks on the money line, so we at least cleaned up a little bit on that. But overall, I gave out the Seahawks for the game plus the points, and I lost that one. I personally betted on the money line too for a little extra kick in the ass I got. So, anyways, we move on to today. We got Virginia versus Florida. Oh, man. Let's start tailgating now.
Hold me back.
Have a great night, everyone, and I'll see you guys at halftime of this Virginia-Florida game. And if it's not the game that we think it is, oh, man, I guess this is what I signed up for having an opinion. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks, Chris, and I'll see you and Rod tomorrow with a 13-game NHL schedule as we end the decade together. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.